The island is a tropical paradise and the last inhabitable place on the outside world. Thousands live and work in a dystopian compound with the hope of winning the right to live there. But not all is as it seems, and above all else, this is a Michael Bay movie, so join us as we discuss The Island. Welcome everyone to the Atomic Cinema Experiment. I am Peter, and joining me as always is David.
I come in peace.
Or David 6 Echo, as he might be known as today. This is a science fiction movie podcast. We get together, we talk about a sci-fi movie. It's that simple. And today we're discussing the winner of one of our Patreon votes. Every month there's a vote between three movies that we'll do in the near future. And the winner for this vote was The Island. And I would tell you what the theme of the vote was, but it's actually kind of a spoiler because the movie does treat it as a reveal, so I won't say it. But
yeah,
there's sci-fi stuff. Basically, the movie is set on like a enclosed living environment for a bunch of people who are kind of surviving the dangers of the world outside. So technically, I guess you could say it's a little post-apocalyptic, but it's mostly kind of a dystopian kind of. I would say I compare it a little bit to Logan's Run if I was to compare it to something. There's some other things I could compare it to as well, but I'll save that for spoilers before I start comparing it willy-nilly to things. But yeah, this is a Michael Bay movie though, so I can only assume the patrons voted for this because they thought it would be funny making us watch a Michael Bay movie. I assume you hadn't seen this before, David, had you?
No, I have not seen it, but the thing you're talking about being a spoiler, I did know that. So it impacted my viewing slightly.
Yes, I heard every word of that. I'm sure it was delightful. Yes, welcome everyone. Sorry, my cats are being pains today. So I hadn't seen this either, actually. This was a first time watch for me. Usually I come in here, have been the one who's seen the random older movie. I'm going to strangle you, cat. I hadn't seen it because it looked bad. Continue, right. David.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's I don't know how I really follow up on that, but it is something that I remember floating past. I think it was on Netflix, like really early in Netflix's cycle, like when they first came to prominence in streaming. And I always saw it there, but it just never really struck my interest as something that should be watched. It just kind of seemed nowadays what we would call Netflix content.
Yeah, I could see that comparison in some ways. Notably, this is like right in between Bad Boys 2 Michael Bay and Transformers Michael Bay. This is what he did right before the first Transformers movie. And you can tell from a visual perspective because it looks very similar to the style of those. Both in kind of visual tone, but also in editing style and stuff like that. I would say that, I just recently actually on Screams for an upcoming bonus episode, I was complaining about the direct-to-video I Always Know What You Did Last Summer sequel. And the relevant part here is that movie's from 2006, and I said that it has this very signature style of that time period where it's really high contrast, but really low saturated.
Yes.
Michael Bay, to be fair to him, went in the other direction with that. He's very high contrast in these movies, but he decided to jack up the saturation as like high as you could go without it looking stupid. So you get lots of really strong like orange skies and stuff like that. Like regardless of the time of day, it looks like magic hour like all the time.
Oh yeah.
And these his movies from this kind of time period. And I think The Island's no stranger to that. But
especially with the constant, I mean, this is a bunch of people do this, but the constant lens flares for dramatic effect. Anytime he really wants to slow things down and get you to pay attention to something, there's always a lens flare going on.
Yeah. And I don't mind a little bit of lens flaring. It's just a fine choice in the right place, but he does abuse it. He does go extreme with it. Because there's times where it's not just like a single lens flare. It'll be like there's almost like a sort of blinds effect of like lens flares all in a row at one point, occasionally in this movie, and I that was distracting to me.
Yeah.
So here's the thing about this movie is that it's got a lot of actual big, high concept science fiction ideas, and there's definitely other sci-fi works you can compare some of those ideas to, of how they've been explored either better or differently in other places. But of course, this is a Michael Bay movie, so really all he wants to do is rush through the science fiction and do silly action sequences, and that's kind of what I expected going into this, and it's kind of exactly what it came out as in the end.
Yeah.
So I guess without further ado, David, what did you think of The Island?
So, full disclosure for how I watched this movie, I always try to watch these as close to the review as possible. That gives me a little bit of time to think. I keep a little bit of a buffer, but I try to keep everything fresh in the mind. I could not fall asleep last night. So I watched this in a borderline sleep-deprived state at 3 a.m. to 5 a.m, and I have not slept since. So in terms of watching it, it's kind of exactly what you said, but I almost, like, at a certain point, and again, this is where I bring in the fact that I was sleep deprived, it almost bordered on, like, feeling like a fever dream at points. Not in that it got, like, way too crazy or anything like that, but it just felt like things weren't making sense. Like, we got to a certain point in the plot, and I can't really reveal too much what it is, but it's about the start of the third act, depending on how you define it. And then I feel like everything from that point on just felt like it was happening way too easily for the characters. Everything was just coming up roses constantly, whereas everything before that felt like it was them really having to try hard and, like, really work for it, and they were constantly on the back foot. But the entire last act kind of just felt like it descended into this dreamlike quality of, and everything worked out fine, you don't have to worry about it. So I don't know, I maybe I'm just feeling that section wrong, but that's the way that I was thinking about it. And it just kind of left me with a sour taste in my mouth leaving it, where I'm like, oh, well, that wasn't really satisfying at all, because it just didn't feel like they really earned it.
I mean, I think that feeling, I mean, maybe not the dream quality aspect, but the feeling that these characters have just the most insane, like, consistent plot armor. Just that feeling kicked in for me even at the start of Act 2. It just kind of felt like, given, like, the premise of the story, who they are and what they're now confronted with, it felt like they just constantly kept getting away with things. And it just, at a certain point, it felt just kind of silly, and I just couldn't buy into it anymore. And it's such a shame, because there's actually good sci-fi concepts that they could be doing something with here. They could be saying things with. They could be doing, you know, all the usual stuff. They could have allegories, social commentary, all sorts of shenanigans. But the movie's not really interested in doing that. And before we started, David might have heard me chuckle and go, "Oh, of course." I will now reveal what I was saying "oh, of course" to. Two of the writers on this movie were Alex Kurtzman and Roberto Orci. Orci? However you say his name.
Whatever it is, but fair enough.
Yeah, and yeah, it's got their stench. It has their stench all over it.
Yeah, no, I now that you say that, and I picture in my head the other things that I know they've written, yeah, I can't really say that this does not absolutely strike me. It honest to God, like, thinking about it compared to something like the Star Trek reboots, yeah, it's almost exactly in that same vein, where it's like, check out this cool universe where we've set up this entire backstory and all this other stuff, and it's got actually, like, deep connotations to the human condition. But screw any of that, we're gonna watch something blow up.
Yep, that's precisely it. So obviously it's a star-studded cast. Scarlett Johansson is very early in her career here. This is only a couple of years after Lost in Translation, which was arguably her breakout role. Although Ghost World was before that, and that had a bit of a fall. And of course, we cannot ignore that she starred in Home Alone 3 all the way back in 1997, which, you know, was a tour de force of a performance, may I say.
The real breakout role.
Yeah, but no, I mean, obviously Lost in Translation is kind of like the big one, and then this is just 2 years later. This is her kind of, you know, getting into the more big budget action Hollywood fare.
Yeah, I will say this kind of did feel like an audition tape for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, just with all the action scenes and stuff. It kind of felt like this was the predecessor to that.
Yeah, not that that existed yet. I mean, I'm
No,
sure
not at all.
Feige was in a cave somewhere, like drawing up what Iron Man 1 was going to be at this time,
Yeah.
but we weren't quite there yet. It hadn't materialized. So yeah, it's just
Box of scraps.
yeah, it's just kind of weird. And it's also weird realizing this is 20 years old because it still feels like a relatively new movie.
Yeah, well, that's the other bit that threw me off is that this movie's 2005, but
yeah.
it's set in 2019. So it's
Yes.
one of those movies where it's in the near future, but it's already passed us by, and you get to sit there and chuckle at, wow, you really thought America was going to put that much into infrastructure in that period of time? Jesus.
Yeah, it is weird because obviously they wanted to be near future. That's why the smart thing is usually to be vague and just say it's the near future. Let's not actually say when it is. But it's so funny though because it's like there's other technology that's clearly meant to be science fiction and advanced, and then you see some of the phone and it's a flip phone, and I'm like, you're like 3 years from the iPhone right now, and you didn't even predict it a little bit.
They have a informational directory, which is the essentially just you walk into a phone booth and it has Google inside, but they didn't choose Google, they chose MSN search. So they just made wrong bets all the way down the ladder.
MSN, yes, that took me back because MSN just simply does not exist anymore. But it was definitely
Right.
something I was using in 2005, so I can't fault that. There's also, and this is also owned by Microsoft, so you can see the connection because Microsoft was MSN. There is like Xbox, like product placement in this. The Xbox have made like live hologram boxing video games for the future.
I will give them credit. I'm sure this wasn't even a glimmer in their eyes yet, but this did feel like, if we went down a slightly different timeline, the natural evolution of the Kinect.
Yeah, I'm not giving them credit for.
No,
that.
of course not. That's the filmmaker making a choice. But like that does kind of feel like that. You know, if boxing really had been a thing there that could have been done on the Kinect, this would be the natural conclusion.
Yeah, honestly, the thing that stuck out to me about that the most, other than just the blatant product placement, it reeks of. Though we've not done this movie on Ace yet, but eventually we'll get to The Sixth Day, which is an Arnold movie.
Okay.
But it was made in 2001, and it was shot in 2000 probably, and came out in 2001. And notably, in the future in that movie, the sport that people are watching on TV is the XFL, because it was made right in that time when the XFL was trying to be a thing, and then completely died immediately.
Boy.
So the MSN thing kind of reminded me of that a little bit. Although the Xbox thing specifically, I did sort of chuckle because I'm like, well, clearly, what's funny about this is that this came out the same year as the Xbox 360, but the Xbox logo in the movie is the original Xbox logo, because clearly when they were shooting this, it was a little too far in advance. They didn't have their 360 logo ready yet. So if what I'm saying is that even when this came out, it already would have been kind of dated looking, this
Right,
Xbox logo.
yeah.
But
You would. I'd assume that Microsoft would be providing them with that stuff. You'd think they would have at least some sort of design docs they could have in the background.
yeah, maybe they hadn't decided yet. Maybe they're like, oh, it's between these three very different looking things. We don't want to like commit to one. We'll just give them the old one.
Meanwhile, what was the one? I think it was I Am Legend had a billboard for Batman v Superman back in like 2005 or whatever, but it was absolutely a completely different setup for it. So it was just totally different.
What do you mean different? You mean it didn't match the real movie that came out? Obviously, it didn't. They didn't know it was going to exist.
No, like it was just like the logo. I think the logo was like completely different from what it ended up being.
Yeah,
in
it was
the
the
same
logo
way
from
that
the
the
comics.
Xbox one would have been. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, they always make new logos for those movies. They were never going to just
That's what I'm
use the comic book one.
Right, but that's what I'm saying, that the Xbox could have easily gotten away with it there. Just be like, yeah, no, it's different. This will be the Xbox after the next Xbox. We could just have whatever. It'll be futuristic looking.
Oh, sure. I mean, I don't know why they didn't make a fancy futuristic looking one, but they didn't. So, hey, it's a weird time capsule.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it feels very off 2005, or to be specific, it feels very Michael Bay mid-2000s, because Michael Bay was kind of frustratingly ruling all of blockbuster cinema for about a decade or so, And it was like, just, I think that part of the reason why Marvel's movies took off is because people were just so desperate for something that didn't feel like a Michael Bay movie. And I think that's partly why they were a hit initially. But regardless, this movie's not good. It's a bad movie. It's not the worst thing you'll ever watch, but it's just kind of soulless and never quite pays off any of the ideas that it has. I think at times it has obnoxious editing that took me out of moments. There's action scenes where I stopped kind of being able to pay attention to what the chase scene or whatever it was, because it was just, the camera was shaking around so much. There was so many quick cuts that I can't follow this. There's nothing enjoyable to kind of follow here as a sort of chain of events. It was just kind of waiting for the chase to get to the next part where it's not a chase anymore. So I could, okay, now something's actually happening. I'll just accept that they got from A to B, and I won't question it. Even though sometimes where they ended up by the time they got to B was very questionable in some of them, and I don't really understand how they got there. But that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah. No, I had that exact same feeling, and there's one that really got to me, and I realized that it was happening, of me just kind of mentally blanking it out, was there's some sort of chase scene.
Hold on. You might spoil something here by what you're about to say, because I think I know what scene you're going to bring up.
I don't think it's a spoiler, but fair enough. I'll stay very vague then. There is a chase scene, and they end up at a location, and then there's kind of a lull for a second. Like, it just slows down it's just like 2 minutes, not even. And it's just enough for me to tune back in and say, okay, here's where we're at, here's what we're doing. And then the chase scene resumes. And all I could realize when we hit that lull is, I have no idea how we got here. But then it starts the next chase, and I'm like, all right, and apparently it doesn't matter. Moving on.
Oh, no, it really doesn't. It doesn't. So to go back to the cast, Ewan McGregor is the other lead. He's Lincoln. Scarlett Johansson plays Jordan. And he is, like his American accent is definitely a bit of a challenge at times. It's not even that it sounds terrible, but he does let it slip a lot. There's lots of little moments where you can just kind of hear the end of sentences or the end of words just sounding a bit off, and it feels like someone who's not an American trying really hard to do an American accent, but just can't do it naturally. And it is what it is. One of his first lines in this movie is, I've lost my left shoe, or I'm missing a left shoe, or something like that. And even just the way he says that, I can tell there's something going on. Like, it's not his normal accent, but it's definitely not American. I took me a while to try to figure out what they were going for, but yeah, he's struggling. Actually, on that first line of dialogue, I genuinely just thought, is he just using his own voice? Because that did not sound American. And I don't know. Not that it really sounded that Scottish either, but it was kind of weird enough that I thought, he just said it funny. But then he kept talking in the next scene, and I'm like, oh no, I think he's meant to have an American accent. It just sounded shit. Okay.
It's supposed to be neutral. It's supposed to be just yes, American, but not any specific American. But no, that was not where we were at.
Yeah. I think some actors pull that off, though, where they just do kind of a general American, but some cannot. Some cannot hide their native twang, if you will.
Yeah.
So you got him. Also popping up in here is Djimon Hounsou, who you might know from Gladiator, amongst other things. We have Steve Buscemi popping up in here. We got Sean Bean. We got Michael Clarke Duncan. So yeah, we got a bunch of faces in here that you probably know from other things.
Yeah. No, I mean, some of those roles are bigger than others, but without spoiling who specifically, like, it is, as these characters were popping up, and even then there are some tertiary characters I was recognizing as well, but like, they were all decently sized named people, and that's kind of at a certain point as we're going through this intro sequence and we're meeting them all, I'm wondering, like, was this actually a blockbuster that just like failed? Was this something that they really did think was going to take off massively and it just never did?
I mean, I think the money they spent on it implies they did think it was a blockbuster. I mean, I assume this cost at least $150 million to make.
According to Wikipedia, I don't know if it's adjusted for inflation, but 126 million.
Okay, no, it's not. Because you don't adjust for inflation unless you're specifically trying to adjust for inflation for comparison's sake.
All right. Fair enough.
So, yeah.
And it made back 163, so not great.
Is that worldwide or domestic, though?
It just says box office, so I'm assuming worldwide.
Yeah, I don't know. It's Yeah, I don't really remember anyone talking about it that much when it came out. I remember it being marketed. I remember seeing the poster, but I do not really. I generally don't remember anyone having this inkling to go see it. And I was still in school at the time. I was in high school, and I don't think anyone, really brought it up or. Like, I mean, in 2005, this was Batman Begins summer season. Like that's what was getting talked about that summer. Probably a couple other things.
I think that's kind of what may have ruined it. Is it seems like that summer was probably just a really tough summer to break into, and a high concept sci-fi thing that was, once again, in the midst of that Michael Bay fatigue sort of era. It's just kind of like, well, I don't really want to go see it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Maybe being high concept sci-fi would have helped if it was actually a high concept sci-fi movie.
Right.
Like if it, think of like Inception, and I know Inception has the benefit of Nolan having a lot of cred by the time that came out, but like, like that got people talking. People were excited to talk about what the ending meant, or like, how crazy the movie got with its ideas and stuff. Whereas I don't think anyone coming out of this would be like, oh, those ideas in there were crazy. Like they were doing wild things with this concept that they have. And it's definitely not that original a concept, because a maker of a movie from, I think the 70s, sued their ass for ripping them off. And they get settled out of court, which basically sounds like, yeah, we know you've got a case, so we're just going to pay you some money. So... I
saw specifically with that trivia that it was like his lawsuit presented over 100 points of similarity, and I'm like, oof, yeah, might want to settle that one.
Yeah. More importantly, though, that movie, which I'm intentionally not saying the name of because it spoils the concept of this one in the title, but yeah. I will point out it's a movie that was on Mystery Science Theater 3000, so it's a terrible movie. It's trash. One day it might be an Extra Reels movie, but it's very similar in concept to The Island, so the director got a huge payday, seemingly.
Probably, yeah. I imagine they paid out for that, and they're like, it's okay, it's a blockbuster, we'll make the money back easily. And then they saw the receipts, and they're like, oh no, we just lost God knows how much money in that lawsuit.
Why are you assuming it was before the movie came out? If anything, I'd assume it's after, because the director probably had to go see it and be like, wait a minute.
Yeah, probably.
Do you think this guy who made a movie like 40 years ago that no one likes or remembers, like had an inside track and found out like through these like connections?
Yeah,
beforehand?
He's still in Hollywood. Of course he's still in Hollywood.
He was never in Hollywood, David. He was never there.
In my mind, as a lawsuit's happening, it always feels like it drags on forever. But if it's something that happened in the past, for some reason, my mental process is it takes about a week to settle. Like, it just happens, and then it's like all done.
I think by the time they paid him, it was probably like at least months since the movie came out. Just because, lawsuits take time, even when they settle them. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, we'll get into all the juicy stuff soon. I don't know how much more spoiler-free stuff I'll mention. I will say the score for this film is by Steve Jablonsky, I think you say his name, something like that.
Yeah, I've recognized this name before, but I'm not sure where from.
Oh, I can tell you. There's no need to speculate. He did all the Transformers movies.
All right. That makes sense. Especially, God, again, no spoiling anything, but the ending theme, as we're rolling into credits, I'm like, I swear to God, this is just from Transformers. Like, you just lifted this and moved it over into that movie.
I mean, it's not, because I remember those scores quite easily, and you can tell it's by a similar composer, the same composer in this case. I actually think the music for Transformers is pretty good. Like, I think it's like the one high point of that movie is that the score's pretty solid and works for the tone that it should have. I think this movie, though, while I recognize musically some of the same tricks that he's using, I think that tonally it's all over the place and doesn't like really fit at times what this movie actually is, or at least what it should be. And I do think that ending track that you just brought up is so on the nose, like happy and hopeful, that it just feels kind of weird. I don't know, like I found the music in this to be kind of all over the place, and I don't know if that's because he was a relatively new composer, he was finding his feet, or maybe like Michael Bay was just like making all these requests for like, no, I want this scene to feel like this, so give me adrenaline. Right. I want this to feel like this, so give me that, and maybe that led to what's here, but so
no, I agree. There's one part specifically that it's essentially a sexy scene, but dialogue-wise, what's being said is like comedic to an effect, and I left that scene so confused on how I was supposed to feel. Is this supposed to be something where it's like, oh, these two people come together and it's supposed to be this romantic thing, or was it supposed to be like an awkward comedy beat of how they came together? It just was weird the whole way, and that's just one example. Like a lot of this, when it's not doing action, it doesn't feel like it has a really set tone to it.
Yeah, I mean, it does have some comedy. Like the people in this whatever you might call this building, this facility that they're all living in. Like I
think they call it the Institute.
The Institute. Oh, there you go. It feels like, there's a lot of stuff that they don't know or understand. An example early on is someone's learned the word dude, right? And it's kind of like, hey, someone's discovered another word that was used on, in the rest of the world when it was alive, and it's like, oh, so how does it get used? Like, you call someone dude, and he's like, D-O-O-D, dude, and then they keep saying dude to each other for like a minute, and they're like, oh, okay, all right.
I just realized I was watching an Ashton Kutcher movie, but all right, sure, let's do that for a while.
Nah, see, no one said sweet after he said dude.
That would be the best little tiny line there. It's just like, oh yeah, I learned a word, just like that other word we learned last week. Sweet. Dude, sweet.
I mean, Dude, Where's My Car must have been like no more than 2 or 3 years before this. Like, it would have been a very, very new reference at the time, had they made that reference.
They've made so many bad bets on everything else technology-wise. I would not put it past them to make a bad bet to say Dude, Where's My Car is one of the comedies that stand the test of time in their eyes.
I mean, you say that, but there's like at least 3 or 4 moments from that movie that have stayed ingrained in internet pop culture since then.
Oh yeah, well that's internet pop culture. That's
I know,
that's a
but
different
like,
beast than just pop culture.
Yeah, but there's comedies that nothing's remembered from. At least people online are still saying and then, or dude, sweet, or whatever.
Right.
So I'm not defending Dude, Where's My Car, for the record.
That's
although technically that is a sci-fi movie. Technically.
I regret everything I've just said.
Because there's characters from the future or the aliens. It's one or the other. I can't remember which one it is, but there's characters either from the future or aliens that are driving the plot. So
yeah,
and possibly the car that is henceforth missing.
Yes.
All right. Spoilers for The Island, because I don't know what else to say about it.
Yeah, no, not much. If it's not clear, you can watch it if you want, but you may just get as much out of it just by listening to us.
Oh yeah, for sure. So yeah, spoilers. I'm just making it clear. We're now in spoilers. I'm about to say what the movie's about. You've been warned.
Yes.
Clones, everyone.
What?
It's about clones.
Oh my... What?
Which I actually knew going in. Hence why I had it on a vote on Patreon called Clone Movies. I didn't realize...
Patreon, you've been spoiled.
Yeah, I did not realize it was something the movie hid. Not that it hides it for, the whole movie. It's not like a twist at the end by any means. But there's definitely some other like cultural stuff or like pop culture stuff at the time that was popping up a lot around here, and that is this idea of the island. And what it is there's this promise that every day someone wins the chance to go to the island, which is the last habitable place on Earth where you can live in a tropical island like the old days, and it's a paradise that's so different from this crappy like metal box we're all living in. And the thought in my head immediately was, the cake is a lie. That's what this is. This is the fake promise. And you can tell the first second they say this on the video screen, you're like, this is a lie. I know this tone. I know the way you're saying it. This is fake. Yeah. This is not a real thing they're being promised. And they're probably getting taken to their deaths. And sure enough, it turns out that when they get taken to the island, it's because they're getting taken to be killed for a purpose, but they're being taken to be killed. So... Yes, Ewan McGregor and Scarlett Johansson are two of the clones living in this society. So when I compare it to Logan's Run, it's because, hey, halfway through the movie, they get out and they get to go explore the real world, which, shock, is not gone. It's not been contaminated with something that killed everyone. It's just slightly in the future. I actually thought there was going to be almost new tech, or no new tech, until they got to the train station and it was a hover train, and I went, oh, I guess there is some fancy new tech. Okay, fair enough.
God, see, that's the point that annoyed me the most. Like, okay, you got to do something to show we're in the future to some extent. Obviously, we're not in like all the cars are flying or anything like that, but there has to be something. The fact that they chose the trains is the most baffling part to me, because if there's one goddamn thing that America is never going to put any more money into again, it's trains. Like, I don't understand why they thought that's the thing that was going to be hoverable.
I actually get the logic to this. They picked trains because that's the one that feels like the biggest difference has happened. Because you just said everything you said because America's reputation for its train system is bad. So by showing a future where there's trains, it's like saying, hey, it's the future. Things have changed.
I guess, but then the fact that we still have normal ass cars is the part that I'm like, there's no way that wouldn't be put on that first, and then we would put it on everything else.
I mean, that's a fair bit of logic. I can't really argue with that. But
yeah,
you know, there's hover trains, and there's a lot of them in the city. Like they're flying around like high up the buildings and everything. So yeah, they were very specific with what they chose to show was the future, when everything else seems the same. But
yeah, I mean, the one thing that I'll say that it feels like they got mostly accurate is pretty much everything's a tablet. Like, we have Sean Bean's desk is just one big, like, Surface tablet, and that's a thing that exists nowadays, so it works. It's fair enough.
It does exist. I mean, I've never seen one in the flesh, because very few people have them, but it does technically exist. That's true.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So the movie opens with basically our main character, Lincoln, waking up from a dream. He's having this dream. And again, like, maybe it's just because I've watched, like, you know, a few sci-fi movies in the past, but I'm like, oh, this dream's like the like their conditioning to like keep believing in this, like, dream of the island. They've literally given them this dream of the island. But he's also dreaming of Scarlett Johansson. She's also in the dream. So it's like, okay, he already seems to care about her. That's something to mention.
Yeah, even without knowing anything else about their world or anything, you already get the feeling that this dream is unnatural. Like, you're not supposed to be having this dream. Something's wrong with it.
Yeah. Even though all the stuff that's there, for the most part, is stuff they put there. There is a couple of flashes of him driving a motorbike and wearing sunglasses, which isn't meant to be there. But that's obviously, like, the real person he came from. Like, some of those memories kind of are baked in there that are starting to seep through.
Yeah. I guess... should we just give, like, the blanket of why the clones are made here? And
sure, yeah, we can talk about the larger context of what this thing is. So basically what we find out, all these clones are living in here and they're being heavily monitored for their diets. Like, their peas analyzed every day. Oh, your salt's up a little bit, so none of this, you know, no bacon at breakfast for you. You're only allowed the oats, so on and so on. And the reason for this is because these are all clones of real people on the outside who have paid to have a duplicate for a variety of reasons. The most two common, seemingly, from the ones that are given in the movie are backups in case you need an organ. You've got like a literal clone who can give you theirs, even if it kills them. And the other one is that if like a woman either can't or doesn't want to go through a pregnancy, oh, I'll just make a clone. She can have the baby and then be killed afterwards. Now, the one key detail here, though, to point out, just to show that not everyone paying for this service, which costs $5 million, we find out later, but which I believe it would be absurdly expensive. Only rich people are getting to use it. But the one detail, though, to make them not complete monsters, is that they actually do not know that the clones are alive and up and experiencing life. As far as they know, and Sean Bean tells us, because he's the one running the company, there's laws that say that clones aren't allowed to be alive. It's like inhumane to have them experience life only to be harvested and used as a product. So, as far as everyone in the outside world's concerned, that's not happening. However, it is happening, and the reason why it's happening is because it turns out that if they don't get up and walk around and live and do all these things and feel emotions, then the organs and stuff just won't be good. They'll fail when they're used, which, okay, sure.
Yeah. I mean, the other things to say from that is, one, the people on the outside think that like they're shown what is essentially just a hunk of meat hooked up to a bunch of wires and stuff. They're like, that is your genetic material, and that is what we will harvest whatever things you need from. And it seems like that was the initial plan, but like you said, the organs were failing, so they were like, well, seems like we've got to make actual humans. The other thing is, inside of this facility, yes, they're monitored physically and stuff like that, but they also are specifically aged up to that level as well. Like whatever they've got on the back end ages them up to the exact age of the person on the outside. So that way everything matches up 1-to-1. But mentally, they're only given education or whatnot. I believe they set up to like 15 years old, and specifically nothing to do with sex, because can you imagine the chaos of that?
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of a murky line to me, because I think that it's hard to define exactly what the education of a 15-year-old is. Because I think, because he says that specifically after he's explaining to the potential customers that he's talking to. He says that, oh, like, or it's not customers, sorry, it must be the not the assassins, but, you know, the operatives they're bringing in to hunt them down once they escape. Anyway, he explains that, oh, they're not given any knowledge about sex, so we try and basically remove that drive from them completely. So they're effectively children in that sense. But I would argue that 15's a weird age to point out, because I think most kids by 15 are thinking about sex a lot at that age. I certainly was.
Yeah, I think it's supposed to be like, you know, the curriculum of a grade school at age 15, not specifically the emotional maturity of that level.
But notably, it's not that they can't have those feelings necessarily. It's just that, you know, like a child, you know, like when you're 6, you just don't know what they are, what it is. But in theory, if 2 clones started exploring and, you know, accidentally touch something, you know, they may make a few discoveries.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing that goes on in this place, on top of all the nutritional and like exercise stuff, is a proximity warning. Anytime a male and a female get too close, hold the phone, back it up, leave room for Jesus.
I think it makes sense, because if you just say that you don't tell them about sex and then that just works, I would say that's bullshit. But if they're actively like, oh, every time there's a man and a woman standing like within a foot of each other, an alarm goes off and you come in and separate them, okay, fair enough. In that case, yes, you're really stopping them from ever actually exploring or discovering anything. So I can't fault that part of it, at the very least.
I am curious if there was like something in a contract or something like that being like, you promise us that your clone will not be homosexual or something, because that's another thing we just cannot deal with.
Well, to be fair, again, people in the outside world think they're just in a bag.
That's true.
The word they use is vegetable. They think they're just a vegetable in a bag. So I don't think concerns of like what the clone is, into ever really comes up. But so the big problem, at least at the start of the movie for me, is the hollow feeling to all the sci-fi setup, right? Because it spends a good half hour setting all this stuff up of just seeing them in this world that they're in. The cake is a lie. They're following these rules. So it's a bit of Logan's Run, a bit of 1984 with the level of control. We see them, socialize after they're done with their work. They don't even know what their work is. They're doing stuff with tubes and putting chemicals into these tubes and they don't know where these tubes go. Turns out they go to the other clones that are being grown in the farm area, I will call it. But it takes like half an hour before we really start like really opening up the plot to like actually get things going. And I think that first half hour, because this movie's like 2 hours and 20 minutes long, it is on the lengthier side. And I did feel that first half hour spent a lot of time, and it's not that it's a bad idea for them to spend time there. If this was like a more serious take on this concept as a science fiction movie, I would be expecting most of the movie to take place in there and not get out until near the end. But because this movie turns into just like car chases and foot chases and explosions for like, the last 2/3, it kind of makes that first half hour before you even start snooping around properly just feel like, oh, that was just kind of like us waiting for the plot to start rather than actually doing anything super in. Because here's the thing, they do like a couple of good ideas where he has a friend that works in a different department that he goes to talk to. This is played by Steve Buscemi. And I did get like a couple of lines into this scene between the two of them. I went, oh, I actually think there's something interesting here about this conversation. I think that if you're paying attention, you can tell that Steve Buscemi's not like them. Like he's from the real world. He's someone who knows what he is and is coming to work, and he's going home every day, unlike our Ewan McGregor character, Lincoln. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. And I'm like, if you just sort of like seeded things like that, these little hints that are contextual, and you kind of sort of build it up over time, that could be quite engaging. I could see a really compelling sci-fi story out of that. But they overly explain with long exposition monologues everything that's going on. All the things we've explained to you in the premise about talking about the company, what it does, how the clones work, all of that is just told to us straight in exposition from either Sean Bean. Steve Buscemi does it again as well when he's with the two clones when they're on the outside. He sits down and just explains everything to them, and it's very kind of like, yeah, I'll explain it to you like your children because you wouldn't understand otherwise. So the audience therefore is getting everything explained to them, and at that point we're getting explained to us for like at least the second time, spelled out.
That's the thing, is that it does it in like a rule of threes, especially for that explanation where we get Lincoln, Ewan McGregor's character, specifically seeing it happen. And it happens in two different ways, the pregnancy aspect and the organ harvesting. So you really, truly get it. You know what's going on here. For anyone who's even slightly literate. But then we do Sean Bean doing his pitch to the people who are thinking about investing or thinking about putting money to get their own clones, and he goes through all of it just spelled out 100%, and you think, okay, fine, maybe some people wouldn't get it, and at the very least this is making him more of a evil character to say that sort of thing. But then we get the Steve Buscemi one, and he dumbs it down even more, and it just feels like you had zero faith in either your premise or the audience to be able to get this idea when it feels like a pretty obvious one to get.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, I didn't like how it was filmed because it was a Michael Bay scene, obviously. But if it was just left that, you know, Ewan McGregor sneaks up to like the hospital level where he's not supposed to be, and Shirley from Community's there, as the receptionist, you know, just cool, whatever. If it was just him witnessing, because he witnesses the birth of this baby, because one of the people who won the lottery, quote unquote, to go to the island, is taken upstairs. We see her give birth. He watches this through a one-way mirror, right? He's watching from the observation room, and he sees this birth, and he's smiling because he's never seen a child before. No one in the island has ever really seen a child before. Maybe they may have fake memories of them, but they've never seen them in person. And he's smiling, and he's like, "Oh, this is a beautiful thing." He's happy he's gotten to see it. But then immediately they strap the mother into the table and like inject her with something, and she like, you know, has a seizure and dies like very quickly, and he's horrified. And it's like, oh, that's a good way to show that the people who leave aren't going to some island. They are just being used for their purpose and shut down. And that would be fine at that point, but they take it one step further. But at least the second one, as much as it's a bit clunky that they do a second example immediately while he's still up here, because he ends up running into Michael Clarke Duncan's character. He's got a very small role in this, but the idea with him is that he is the real version of him is an athlete, and he's a very famous guy, and it makes sense. A lot of people who have got clones in here are famous. We find out that one of the side characters later is actually the president in the real world outside. Which, man,
they did that reveal like 2/3 in, and I was like, oh wow, that's really going to be something that is going to be played on. The fact that the president has a double out there, can't wait to see that pay off.
Nope.
Not a damn thing.
They even mention it again. Never mind pay it off. You fool. So but you see him. He's going to get harvested for some organs because the athlete needs them. But he's able to kind of fight that off and like say, "You promised me the island," and he runs down the halls, and Ewan McGregor sees him like begging for his life, and they drag him back to the room. And like the guards just kind of, the next scene with them is them laughing it off, like, "Oh, it's so funny. He was crying as we were dragging him," and it's very, it's just blatantly showing how evil all this is and how inhumane it all is and all that. So I still appreciate that it's a show don't tell, although I do think he like says too much as he's like fighting away. Because he actually says, "You said I'd go to the island." Like he's actually saying everything really specifically. And I'm like, you didn't really need to do that. You could have just had him be scared and try to run away and be dragged back. And later on, when we're on the outside and we see like a big billboard with his face on it, like, with holding a football, it'd be like, oh, we get it. This is the real one who was getting the organs from him, and it would click out of place. But it's been dumbed down so much that of course we already got it. Everything was overly explained to us.
That's even, we'll get to the later plot points. Everything that has to do with any sort of this stuff is spelled out incredibly in depth. Like there's a point later on where it's like, Ewan McGregor is questioning his world. That's how we begin this at the beginning. He's got all these questions, whereas everyone else is very docile. And it's found out later on that essentially because he's like the fifth model type or whatever like that, once they hit the fifth model type, every other model started having the potential to do that. And it's explained like 4 times. It's like, oh yeah, well, this one model is impacted, but then all these models are impacted. What are we going to do with these models? Oh, we're going to do a recall. What is a recall? Let's explain that in depth 5 times. It's just not knocking us over the head over and over with it until finally we're just like, yes, we get it. We understand. Please move on.
You're right. They felt the need to define the word recall.
Yeah.
Yep.
Multiple times.
Yeah, that is something. Yeah, because obviously this is going to be a movie where him and ScarJo go on the run, right? And that's a fine premise. I think it's a solid premise for a movie with this kind of idea. That I think the script is far too obsessed with getting to it. Like, it wants to be this movie with all these mysteries that it's going to solely unveil what the truth is. And it's okay if we get immediately that, okay, there's a lot of lies here, we're going to uncover that as it goes on. If the uncovering process is exciting and we get these little hints that sort of tease our brain. But the movie's like rushing through it so quick that you're not really doing the mystery part of the movie. You're just kind of speedrunning it. So that's problem number 1, and it makes that first half hour kind of a rough part to sit through. But the plot makes sense to me in conceptual level, where we see these 2 main characters are close. They keep getting into trouble for being too physically close to each other. They're playing games together. They're talking to each other, and there's a lot of chemistry, relatively speaking, there. I do think they would have benefited. I guess it goes against the whole, like, they're actively stopping them from being intimate in any way. But it maybe would have been nice to have something that was a bit more emotional connecting them, other than just, because all we really see is them playing games together and hanging out. We see them socialize. It would have maybe been nice if, like, if Lincoln's having these weird doubts where he's starting to question things, it would maybe be nice if, like, he got upset about it and she was, like, kind of a comfort to him. Maybe not quite a physical comfort, but like, was able to, like, try and help him through it and maybe show that she's there for him in a way that no one else is, and make it feel a bit more real. Because what it builds up to is that she wins the lottery and she's announced as the next winner and she's going to be leaving. And obviously Lincoln's a little heartbroken because his one, like, real friend, and maybe the person he's in love with, even if he doesn't understand or realize that's what it is leaving. And that's sad, even though technically, in theory, she's going to get to the paradise, the promised land, and have this happy ending. So when he witnesses that the people who are leaving are not actually leaving, which he, by the way, he just decides to go and investigate that in the middle of the night because he has another dream, which is very artsy Kurtzman. It's like, we need this to happen now, so we're just going to give him a very, very quick justification for going to do it. But
we get a whole thing where he found a bug, and somehow that was enough to, like, trigger in his mind, like, there must still be a world out there that's not contaminated with this infection. But did we even mention that the whole reason they're in here and they're told that there's an infection on the outside?
Well, that's the lie they're told. Yeah, it's to keep them scared of leaving, but the island's meant to give them hope still of something that they're building to. But he goes to investigate and he sees these things we talked about with the pregnancy and the clone of the athlete, and obviously it's like, okay, you've given him a good, like, goal here, a good conundrum. The person he cares about is going to the island, but he's just discovered that means she's actually going to be killed. So now he's got, like, someone to go and save, someone that he cares about. There's obvious drama there that you can build on. And I swear, I cannot believe how much they fumbled this part of the movie, because he basically just runs straight to her. The guards and, like, Sean Bean figure out that he was snooping around and that they have to go get him immediately. So there's, like, no, like, I thought, oh, there's going to be like half an hour of the movie where they don't know who was snooping around, and it's going to be kind of tense because they might, do they know it's him yet? Should he be scared yet? Is he on borrowed time as he tries to, like, maybe figure out his next move?
A stealth section at the very least.
But no, he runs up and, like, basically grabs her and tells her this, and she's like, what are you talking about? I'm going to the island. I love the island. Blah, blah, blah. She's all excited about it, and it's like, okay, this is maybe some interesting conflict. She still believes in the island. She believes in the truth here, and she thinks that he's just been a weird, like, paranoid Debbie Downer or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
But within maybe 60 seconds, she's helping him fight guards. And I guess maybe it's them trying to say to us, oh, she's ride or die with them regardless. But it just completely deflates any idea that she doesn't believe what he's saying. And by the time they even have a chance to slow down, she's already seen clones in bags, and she's seen like the Clockwork Orange style TVs that are above the clones that are like beaming these dreams into their heads. You know, with the guy saying, you want to go to the island, it's your dream place, blah, 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 blah. Right? She sees all this stuff before she even has a chance to slow down and have a conversation. So by the time that they're even like, you know, able to talk to each other again, she's already seen so much to prove absolutely everything he was saying, pretty much, that there's any possible drama, any possible tension of her not believing, and the sadness of her coming to realize that her entire reality is a lie. It's a dud. Nothing's done with it. It's like glossed over.
Yeah, this is every subplot in this movie has that exact same issue, because at one point when Steve Buscemi is doing the breakdown, and we'll get to that, he specifically says, you guys are used as like organ transplants. That's your primary thing. We harvest the organs from you and give them to the main people. You're just there to provide the organs. There is a dancing around the idea of, well, here's a moral conundrum. Like,
oh yeah,
you now have to decide whether your existence means that this other person who paid for you to live deserves to now die. And specifically, they focus in on Scarlett Johansson because she ends up.
Well, that's the thing. Before you even explain it, it's something you can realize in the movie once you start to unravel what's going on here. Is that the only time you win the lottery in the context of these clones is because your sponsor, they call them, the real person, the sponsor, it means they need you. It means that something's wrong and they need an organ or something. So when you realize that, you're like, wait a minute, her continuing to exist means that this real woman is going to die. Now, obviously, these clones are clearly alive. They think, they feel, they fear, they deserve to live. But it does raise some interesting questions where I genuinely thought, oh, ScarJo's character is going to have maybe a moment where she maybe considers, should I go and meet her and offer, you know, my kidneys or whatever it is she needs? Like, should I go and do that? And they never even go and see her.
No, that's the thing. They want to dance around the idea. They want to have this thing where it's like, oh, we see her sponsor's young child, the child that they know will soon be motherless because it's all up to her to give the organs. If she chooses not to, the mother will die. And they don't care. Like, the movie doesn't care to follow up on that. It has nothing to do with their process. They have already established, before we even get to that point, that their choosing to live is more important than anything else by a country mile. There is no other thing that is that important. So any sort of other little things they could try to explore in that sort of vein of, is it truly worth doing this? Do we have the right to be able to say that this person should die? Gone. Don't care. Focus on more explosions.
Yeah. That's pretty much it. Obviously, we do get to Ewan McGregor's. We get to see the real one of him, right? But it felt like there was a chance to do a more heartfelt thing at the end where maybe... Because by the time we get towards the end of the movie, Sean Bean says, like, it's probably too late to save the real ScarJo now anyway. Like, it's like we took too long getting her back, so it doesn't matter anymore. So I'm like, but she's not quite dead yet. And I thought, well, is she awake? Like, is there a chance we'll get to see, like, some sort of teary... Like, oh, I get to meet like my original, but she's dying, and you know, whatever could come from that, I don't know. I mean, I don't think the clone's prepared to like raise a kid because technically she's only 3 years old herself. But that's a whole other kettle of fish to get into.
That's kind of the other thing. It's implied in the movie that like maybe we'll eventually get to that point, but it also is something where it's. One of the plans of the characters is that they need to be able to get out in public and say, hey, we're not just hunks of meat, we're actually alive, and therefore we are real people. Please give us attention and rights and whatever else. It's implied that most people are going to be understanding and sympathetic to that. But we never actually meet a character who is. At no point do we meet a character who gives a damn that these essentially organ harvesting meat sacks are conscious and real and have feelings or whatnot. And again, it just feels like they set up that idea of, we'll get that. We're going to get that thing where the world gets to see them as they are. And then we just don't, because whoops, we're already at 2 hours, 20 minutes and we haven't done enough explosions.
Not to dispute it too much, because I agree with the general point you're making, but we do technically get someone. In fact, I'd also argue that Steve Buscemi, to an extent, is like on his way, because he's kind of like reluctant, but he's helping them, and it kind of feels like maybe he's starting to see them as real people before he gets snuffed out. But the one that I would argue does see them as real people and makes an active choice at the end to help them is actually one of the poorest written things in the whole movie, because out of nowhere, a character who's effectively been a straight antagonist, right? So once they escape, which, by the way, their escape is just lots of crappy chase scenes of them running through parts of the building and getting to new areas.
Can I just say, if you're writing a script, you get one, maybe two, of a character who looks back and yells at the top of their lungs, "Run!" You don't get 7. You don't get 7 over the course of your movie. Put it through another draft.
So once they get on the outside, Sean Bean calls in like an elite team, right, led by Hounsou's character, right, Albert, his name, right. And
I don't think they ever say his name.
Yeah, I think they say Laurent, which is his last name, once or twice. They may have said that, but he like. And by the way, Michael Bay, I know you'll love it. I know you love this shot. But see the low angle shot of someone getting out of a helicopter in slow motion, and you can just hear the blades go thum, 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 as they're getting out in slow motion. Like the only thing that Michael Bay was probably upset about is that this guy's bald, because it would look even better if they had hair blowing in a slow motion wind. Anyway,
did he put on or take off sunglasses as that's happening? I think that needed to be there.
He was wearing sunglasses, I think. I don't think he took them off in the shot, but I think he was wearing them. So yeah, a lot of the staples are there. But he's called in, and Sean Bean explains to him, yeah, so we're kind of doing this illegal thing, and we've got all these living clones. And Hounsou is like, I do what I'm paid to. I don't care. We'll take care of it. We'll hunt them down. So he takes this job, and might I remind you that when they're tracking them later at the train station, where Steve Buscemi's like seeing them off their way and he's giving them some money and whatnot, his men just kill Steve Buscemi without a second's hesitation, without a second's thought. It does not matter. They will kill civilians to achieve their mission, and it's just like a job for hire. This is not like they're fighting for their country and believe in their cause or anything. This is a money job. And out of nowhere, in the third act, when he's brought ScarJo back to the base, when he's found her, which we'll get to the context of all that, and he's talking to Sean Bean, and Sean Bean reveals that it's a bit too late to save the real ScarJo. She's probably a goner now. And Hounsou goes, but you're going to harvest the clone anyway, even though it probably won't help. And he's like, yep, she paid for that privilege to at least have us try. And I'm like, wait, are you showing empathy now? What the hell? And he brings up that, like, where he used to live, his dad died in, like, a war or whatever, and, like, him and his, like, friends all got branded. He's got, like, a brand on his hand. And he basically is showing that he's sympathizing with the clones because they've all got brands on their wrist. And I'm like, wait a minute. This guy has been leading a team that has been recklessly endangering people on roads the whole movie, has actively killed at least one civilian, and just, no due process. And all of a sudden, he's now questioning the evil company that's hired him?
Here's the thing. When they show he has the brand on his hand, and like that should be something, and he explains this whole thing of like how it's because of whatever dictatorship was in charge or whatever, to show that they were less than people. So he has, from that moment, an implicit like set point that he should be empathizing with these clones from the beginning. From the very start, he should have that. Now, it is okay And it is sometimes desirable for your characters to have these glaring contradictions in their moral code because it gives you something to explore. It gives you something that you can look at and say, why does this exist? How did this character get to this point? But this does not feel like that. This feels like it was poorly written, thrown into the third act so that we could have this guy make a heel change right here at the end. It doesn't feel like it was exploring anything.
Technically, what you said was accurate there, but it's a face turn. He did.
Face turn. Sorry.
A heel turns when you turn bad, a face turns when you turn good. I mean, you said a heel change, and technically he was a heel that changed, so I can't argue it is on a pure English level correct.
Technically correct,
but,
yes.
I think they need to make a bigger deal when he was bringing her in and he saw like the brand on her wrist. Like, have a bigger deal of him kind of realizing, oh no, am I the baddie? Like, you know, something like that. But the way he's been hurt, like, just, I mean, he, not personally, but the way he's been letting his men just like go after civilians. Like, there's something in the middle of this movie where to get them out of police custody, they definitely kill cops. They kill at least 2 cops instantly, and then shoot at more cops. Like, you can tell me that you're willing to shoot at civilians and whatnot, and then turn around and say, no, I believe in the rights of these clones.
I think what they needed to do was, from the beginning, have him say that he was from this war-torn country, blah, blah, blah. Give a little bit of his backstory so that we can get this idea that he's desensitized to violence and war. But Sean Bean should never have revealed the actual, here's what's going on. He says, look, it's a trade secret. Do not worry about it. And he goes, fair enough. Your money talks louder than that. So then when he finds out that they are being bred specifically for this cause of harvesting, that's when he realizes, oh, wait, we're not so different. And then he can make his turn.
Yeah.
But he was provided all the information up front, and we only get his tragic backstory at the end. So it's a complete flip of what it should have been.
Yeah, no, it's just a complete dud in every way. And in the very next scene, he's with ScarJo and he just starts helping her. And that's just it. That's just it. He's just done Team Good now. And that is what it is. So, but yeah, so they get outside and it's like, it looks like it might be the post-apocalyptic still because they're in the desert. And there's like a rundown like building and they're like, oh yeah, like what was the world really like? There's nothing here. But they do see a snake. And again, they think there's no life on the outside. So they're like, well, I don't know what this is, but it seems to be alive.
I don't know why, because I knew nothing was going to happen, but as they're getting close to that snake, it's like rattling at them, and I got a pit in my stomach. Maybe I have some sort of deep phobia of snakes I didn't even know I had, but I was like, no, get away. It's going to kill you.
Yeah, so there's a lot of those jokes as well where they don't know what something is. Because when they get to the bar, because he's got like the matchbox that he got from Steve Buscemi earlier when he went to see him, they find that bar, which makes sense. It's nearby because Steve Buscemi obviously comes here either before or after work when he's doing stuff. So they go to the bar and they do find him there, but there's a lot of dialogue with the bartender where they misunderstand something, or when he offers ScarJo a drink and he says bottoms up or something. He
says whiskey straight up, and as soon as he says straight up, she just looks at the ceiling.
And I'm like, are we really doing like the Thor style comedy here of we're a fish out of water?
You're missing the crux of the scene, which is, oh, hey, he's in the can. And Ewan says, oh, he's in a can? And he's like, no, he's taking a dump. Taking the dump where? And then he says, look, he's first door on the right. And he's like, oh, cool. I got to see my friend take a dump in a can. It's like, okay, sure. Yeah. Just get it out of your system, do it here, and please never do it again.
Hey, trust me, there's worse comedy to come from Michael Bay movies later on. When you do
I really hope that it's mostly testicle based.
When you do those Transformers movies as homework, you better believe you're going to get some rough ones, especially in the fourth movie.
Was the fourth one the first Mark Wahlberg one?
Yes.
All right, I didn't get to that one. I watched the first 3 before. I remember those, but yeah.
Just you wait. So yeah, this is where they team up with Steve Buscemi. He takes them back to his place because he knows that they'll be looking for them, and he'll be in trouble if he's caught with them. So let's get out of sight. Blah blah blah. And he takes them to his place where his wife is. I'm forgetting the actress's name, but she's in the Saw movies, and she's in Becker, and she's in the 1988 version of The Blob. Shawnee Smith. That came to me. Shawnee Smith.
Yes.
So she's in one scene in this movie, and she's Steve Buscemi's wife, which felt a little bit like, you know how he's got that "How do you do, fellow kids"? Now, obviously, she's not like super young here necessarily, but I feel like there's still a bit of an age gap between her and Steve Buscemi. I'm willing to bet.
Yeah. Buscemi's always looked older than he is, though. I don't actually know how old he is in this, but
That's probably
how old is he
true.
now minus 20 years?
Yeah, I don't know, but maybe it's just him. Maybe he just looks older. I don't know, but anyway, and they have like a gag here as well when he's saying, "Hey, I'll get you some clothes so you can travel," blah blah. Where he goes to the closet with ScarJo to get some of his like wife or girlfriend's clothes to give to her, and the joke is that she keeps pulling out all these sexy outfits she's got for sex stuff. Maybe she's a stripper. Maybe that's what they're saying, because she has like a sexy nurse. She has a sexy maid, and the other one was, but there was, it was all the cliched sexy outfits, and so they have a few jokes with that, but obviously he has his plot exposition regurgitation scene, and they get to this idea where immediately, once they find out they're clones and they understand some of the context, Ewan McGregor's like, "Oh, we have to find the real ones then, so they can help us, and we can expose that we're actually alive down there, and all of our friends down there are being exploited, and they're being killed one by one. We must expose this."
Yep. And immediately Buscemi points out, they don't care. Nobody's going to care. They paid $5 million for you not to care.
And I think some people might care, or at least if the sponsors don't care, I think some people on the planet would care, but we never obviously explored that. We never really get to that, other than Hounsou's character.
Well, see, that's why I really genuinely believed that we would get back to the president one. The body double for the president, because like you can have these little no-name celebrities that just brush them off, and like who cares if there's two of them, but if someone who looks exactly like the president shows up next to the president, there's gonna be some questions.
Yeah. But he basically discovers that, okay, Ewan McGregor's one must be in LA, so get on the train. So when they're at the train station and Buscemi gets killed by the squad that are hunting them, so that happens, and then the two of them go on a chase scene, which lasts for ages, and it's them running. They end up in like a sort of derelict place, and they're fighting back with like basically weapons they find. Like, I think ScarJo picks up a nail gun here and like nails the guy's hand to the door. And it's like, okay, whatever. And then there's more chasing, and all the chasing's all very shaky cam, lots of quick cuts, lots of like high bright contrast, like sunlight hitting your face as they're running through doors. And somehow they end up back at the train and get on the train. Like, the geography of it all just felt really weird to me, because I'm like, okay, you went in a big circle, I guess, but okay, we're on the train, off they go.
I also, as much as the cat and mouse thing works for the most part, it doesn't like have it be where all of a sudden they're just there at the next location. They explain how they get there. Sometimes it does feel like, I don't know, this team of assassins should be smarter than what it is they're doing. Like, at some point, they're like, hey, we have a wide open desert. We have no idea what direction they were even heading in. And they talk about how there were some, like, brain sensors in Ewan McGregor's head that they can track for a while. And, like, that's clever. I like that. That seems like they thought outside the box for that. But then later on, they're like, oh, no, where could they possibly be going? And then they have to, in the same exact tone of, hey, we figured it out, they talk about, yeah, they just ran a credit card and they bought 2 tickets, so we can just meet them at the station on the other side. And it's like, that doesn't feel like crack ace team to me, but whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, they get to the city, they look up the real person, and obviously when they're there, they see like an ad for something that ScarJo did, where ScarJo's in the ad, and she's like staring at herself, being all confused, especially when the advert includes some kissing, and she's like, what is this kissing? Kissing?
Apparently that is an actual ad. Like, they didn't make that for the movie. That was ScarJo doing an ad separately.
Okay. I guess that's mildly interesting.
Tiny trivias. I have them.
Yeah. And of course, because they have to scan the credit card again for this like information kiosk, the MSN box or whatever they're in. I love the idea of an MSN booth. Like, you had phone booths, now you've got MSN booths. You make your AIM chat style conversations in a booth.
If you're moving down the path and you don't know that MSN's not going to be a thing, and you also don't know that everyone's going to have a smartphone, this makes sense of having just publicly accessible internet searches anywhere on a street corner. I'm all right with the concept, but it is laughable at how quickly they were wrong on every front of that.
Yep. So yeah, very quickly, the squad actually don't get there first because this credit card's been reported stolen. The police show up first and arrest them.
Full guns and everything. And like, all they'd say in the movie up front is that, oh, the police were tracking it because it was the stolen credit card of that guy. And they come out guns blazing. I'm like, yep, that's the LAPD. They justify it later by saying in connection with Steve Buscemi's murder.
Yes.
Like they're thinking these people did it. But like, I thought for sure this was just for the fact that they stole a credit card and this is the future of debt control.
Yeah, because that's something else they kind of tease is like, well, they have been apprehended by the police. They're going to take them away and, like, you know, figure out who they are because, you know, their fingerprints match the real people and so on and so forth. So there's a conversation between Housou's character and Sean Bean's character where he's like, hey, you have to get them back from the police because if you don't, then our client who paid us a lot of money will be implicated in a murder. And that's kind of a big deal. And I'm like, oh, that's actually an interesting thing to discuss. It's an interesting avenue to go down, but we'll never bring it up again because they immediately crash into the police car, which splits it in half completely. And I can only assume the two cops in the front are dead because of the way that it was flying off. So we very quickly just get more chase sequences here. Ewan McGregor luckily has inherited some like bike riding knowledge. He gets on a hover motorbike.
Yeah. So this is kind of the back half of the movie where we're starting to get these implicit little things of he doesn't know how he's doing this. He doesn't know how he has the knowledge, but he does. And what we find out over the course of Sean Bean and one of the scientists doing some extra mock-ups and searches and stuff like that is that starting with the 5th generation of clones, they upped the ability for like memory perception or something like that, but it ended up copying memories from the originals to some extent, and it like boosted their abilities to form these memories. So they're starting to remember things from their life beforehand, and therefore they have to get rid of everything after the 5th generation, which is Echo onwards, and they're on like generation 8 I think now.
Yeah. So we get this chase sequence where they're going through the highway. It's a very Michael Bay highway chase sequence. So there was one in Bad Boys 2 just a couple of years before this that I remember.
There's a shot in this that was actually reused in Transformers, just straight up lifted.
I was literally about to say he also did a highway chase in Transformers, the next movie he made. He was obsessed with doing highway car chases during this time. And it feels exactly like one of those chases that he made in those other two movies, the exact same type of editing. And somehow, and I don't know how they end up like halfway up a building on this bike, but they do.
It doesn't make any goddamn sense.
Yeah, I genuinely don't know how they get there, but they end up on there's a big letter, like, almost like the Wayne Tower in Gotham, right? Where there's like a big W on it. There's a big letter on the side of this building that they end up kind of like teetering on, and for some reason the squad who have got orders to kill just start firing down at them, and it ends up causing like an explosion where the entire letter falls down. And this is where I felt the plot armor just go into absurd levels, because these two main characters just survive somehow. They just survive by landing in some weird net that's next to like some scaffolding because someone's painting something or something, and the guy's like, oh, you two are, God's on your side because you just survived that. No, the writers are on their side, that you'll find.
Yeah. That was the moment I was talking about before where, the whole highway chase happens. My brain just glazes over. And when I finally snap back to, they're in that big letter R, because it just has that just a second for a lull. And so it snapped me back just enough to see them falling down off the building. And I'm like, this is the dumbest thing. How did we even get here? What the hell is happening?
Yeah, the action scenes are just noise. There's no A to B to C, where you understand the geography and you can get excited about what the goal is. And part of the problem is that every action scene is effectively the same thing in this movie, and that is the people chasing them have caught up to them, and now they're chasing them directly. So they're running away from the bad people, and that's every action scene pretty much.
Yep.
It's very repetitive. Even though the locations for them are very different, it never really feels like there's like, you know, modifiers or things that really shake things up. And part of that's because they do feel so similar because it's always just the same thing of running away from the same people. But part of it's also, I think, just because all of them are shot the same way, not just for this movie, but all of the other Michael Bay movies that were coming out around this time. So they all feel just very samey.
Yeah, I honestly think that the biggest fault here is they never switched up our protagonist's motivation even a little bit. If they were to have had something where, like, even like that sequence where it ends up with them on the train, it never felt like we ever established that the motivation is get on this train before it departs. Like if we were racing against the clock or something, that would have been something. But instead, it just ends and we're on the train. That was never a motivation at the beginning.
Yeah, a goal during one of the scenes other than just trying to get away would have went a long way, I think, because like having a clear just thing in mind, like a clear destination where you're like, we have to get there by this time to achieve a result. Obviously they do get proactive in the third act for reasons, but that's because it's own problems that don't quite work, to be honest. But so yeah, they get to the real Ewan McGregor's house because they get away at the end of all this. Magically, them falling off this big letter's clouded their like pursuers enough that they don't know where they're going. So they go to the real Ewan McGregor's house. They get in with his fingerprints and eye scanner or whatever, and they're looking around. They're seeing some stuff. He seems to have some big, like, sort of almost model-esque photos of himself on motorbikes and stuff. And it's like, okay, it's clicking in with these weird dream memories that he's having. And then the real Ewan McGregor jumps out and tries to swing a bat at him before he realizes he's looking at himself, and he kind of freaks out a little bit. And it's revealed that the real one does have a Scottish accent, which is kind of weird because then the fake one starts trying to mimic the Scottish accent, and he's like, stop doing that, it's weird. So he goes back to the American accent, but I'm like, yeah, but the American one's also pretty weird here, to be fair, because you're not very good at it.
I love that because the way the movie progresses from here, it feels like this was solely put in as an excuse of, we're going to let you just finish off the movie with your natural accent. Don't worry about it. You don't got to worry about that anymore.
Yeah, and so the whole thing here with the real Ewan McGregor is that he's a prick, right? He pretends to be kind of nice to an extent, and he pretends that he's going to help them. But there's just all these little hints, like the way he reacts to certain things, the way he kind of gets a little skeevy with Scarlett, where he's kind of like kissing her hand and saying, oh, your skin's so soft. I've seen you in magazines. They're really you.
It's implicitly stated, and I think even explicitly stated, that he is a horn dog, and the whole reason that he made Ewan McGregor's like the clone version is because I think it's his liver is going to die out because he has like mega STDs, and so he needs to get that taken care of.
Yes, and that leads to the realization that the clone doesn't know what sex is, and he's like, wait, you don't? Oh, you're in for a treat when you realize.
He literally says, you're with Scarlett Johansson and you haven't had sex yet? Oh, I'm not going to spoil that one for you.
Yeah, so the whole thing is that he basically agrees to take them to a news station, to NBC, so they can broadcast to the world, as if NBC just lets people walk in and, broadcast something.
I also like the point of, like, it doesn't seem like this particular guy, Ewan McGregor, he says that he's a designer of, like, boats and motorbikes or whatever. He's not really that famous.
No.
So how would we have anything that he's just not got a twin brother? Like, what was going to be their proof that this is an actual honest-to-God clone?
That's true. Well, to be fair, though, the real McGregor here is, just lying because he's calling the company and saying, why is my clone here? Come and take care of this. So he's just luring them into a trap. ScarJo stays behind because she senses that something's up because she knows the clone so well. she recognizes that the real one might be lying because of the way his eyes are moving, because she's so used to when her clone version does, like, and not that the clone one was like making bad lies or anything, but just this idea that she can tell when he's upset because he might fake a smile, but the eyes kind of tell the truth.
Yeah, it's also with that boxing match thing, it's implicitly said that she's able to read her opponent. She's able to get inside his head specifically and know what's up.
Yeah, so he says, all right, you stay back there in case, and he goes off with him. And of course, along the way there, the squad shows up to attack them, and the real McGregor pulls out a gun and is like, yeah, just stop moving now. I thought it was really weird, though, that the shot of him pulling the gun out, we can't see his face. Like, we only see the clone's face and the gun, and I'm like,
yeah,
would you not show the real one as he's made this turn, and, like, you know, how he feels in the moment, that he's, like, finally showing that he's a prick and that he wants his clone to be in, you know, there so he can use him because he thinks that he's only got a couple of years left before he needs to replace his liver.
The entire sequence of them inside talking, every once in a while we'll get a dual shot where we'll see both Ewans on screen at the same time.
Yes.
Other than that, there's some clever shot reverse shot where it feels like, you know, it's definitely a body double. They're saving on the economic shots there, but it's not overtly bad. When they get in the car, it becomes overtly bad. You can feel how hard they're trying to not show one of their faces just to save a visual effect shot.
So, yeah, a bit of a chase. The clone's been driving because he wanted to drive. So the real one's reluctant, but kind of lets him, I guess, just to keep his guard down, to make him think that everything's all right.
I do like the implicit where he says, yeah, I know how to drive, but he never clarifies that he knows the rules of the traffic. So when they come up to a red light, he's about to just blast right through it.
He's like, I know how to drive, but I don't know what the lights mean. So the whole thing is, and you can kind of see this coming a mile off, that when they get them cornered, both of you McGregors are standing next to each other, and the clone thinks on his feet and says, no, he's the clone, I'm the real one, and he puts on the accent because they already established that he can fake it. Wink, wink. It's his real accent. But he straps his bracelet onto him, and that convinces Hounsou and his men that the real one's actually the clone, so they shoot him immediately, and that's it. Done deal.
I get how this was written. I see, you know, clone standoff, it's always been a thing. I've seen it done well. Just because of how it's edited and paced, you have the real Ewan McGregor shouting and screaming. He's holding the gun. He's saying, no, shoot him. He's the clone, da-da-da-da-da. And the clone's just kind of standing there silently for a good, 10 seconds before he says anything. And all he says is, no, I'm the real one. And I'm like, anything, show some emotion, buddy. And the fact that the other one got shot just seems stupid at that point, because it doesn't feel like he's putting in any effort in this first part, and therefore he should have already been shot.
Yeah, also, if the real one was thinking on his feet, he really could have quickly proven it, because the clones don't know that much about the world, so he could have just said, hey, what's the capital of Paris, or France, rather, you know what I meant, yeah. And have the clone be like, gravy?
See, that could have been a really interesting thing where we set up something as they're doing their lessons or they're learning stuff. We see that he actually learns some very tiny little trivia fact, and it just so happens to save him right here. They could have used that to be something big, but instead, nope, a bracelet on the wrist. Why not?
Yeah, I mean, they do kind of show him smartly circumventing a question later, because when he's going back to the cloning place, and the PR guy's like, hey, so what part of Scotland you from? And he just gets annoyed and goes, oh, this small talk, I know it's part of your job, but can we cut the shite and get on with what I'm here for? And I'm like, oh, very nice way to circumvent the fact that you don't know where any place in Scotland is.
Yeah.
So, very good. But, yeah, so he basically can, if he wants to, just live the life of the real person. Now, it's revealed later on that once the body's back to the lab, they're going to realize quite quickly that it's not the clone, and it probably would have come crashing down around him anyway. But in theory, at this point in the movie, we think he can just live this way. But him and ScarJo, before they even get to this decision making, they have their first romantic night of passion, where
Yes.
she's seen the kissing in the ad, so she tries laying a kiss on him, and he just immediately goes, "Oh, this tongue thing feels good. Do that again."
That's as the music is swelling. Like, they are already full on in the romantic scene, and he's like, "Oh man, why haven't we done this before?" And she's like, "Shut up, just keep kissing."
Yeah. So, there's a brief glimpse of the actual sex, and then like the next day he's like, "Oh, like we could just take this boat that he's got out here and just, go south and live our lives and be free." But we can't do that until after. And it's like, oh, they've got a plan. They're going to try and like save all the other clones.
Yeah, they heard about the recall going on.
That's
so
right.
They've got to hop in and save them before it's too late.
Yes, because the PR guy calls them thinking it's the real one and says, "Hey, we've got a problem here. We have to do a recall of all these models, blah, blah, blah." So it's like, okay, like in theory, obviously this is good, right? You're giving them this noble goal where it's like, it's not just about them themselves. It's like, no, all the other clones deserve to live, especially since this recall thing. Obviously, we know that they typically get told they win the lottery and they're taken to, an operating room or whatever it is for whatever they're getting used for. But with the recall, because they're just getting rid of tons of them very quickly, they have a bunch of winners, and then they lead them to what's basically just a gas chamber. It's very like dark. So,
yeah,
it's like,
I mean, it's again, there's that room where if they had already explored the concept of dying for the sake of saving somebody else's life and the moral implications of that, then when you move it to, oh, now they're not dying for anything, it makes it feel that much more evil. But because they already made up their decision very quickly on that first part, this doesn't feel that much more evil. It still feels in the same line as all the rest.
Yeah. It's also, I don't know. Like, what I'm trying to get at is that I think on paper this all makes sense to me. On paper, you have these main characters make this choice to try and save everyone else, even though it's putting themselves back at risk of like not, because they could easily be caught here and not be free anymore. So they're being selfless. That makes you want to root for them in theory. But all of it's just so rushed and handled ineffectively that I just felt nothing. And maybe at this point we're in Act 3 now. It's too late to win us over at this point, but it just didn't feel like it was clicking. And then on top of that, you've got the face turn for the other character, which feels very hollow. I mean, at the very least, something that I thought was a huge stupid thing turned out to be intentional, which was ScarJo. It cuts to ScarJo. Ewan McGregor's on his way to the cloning place to pretend to be the real one so he can do something to try and save everyone. ScarJo's in a park and she's just giving out ice cream. She's buying ice cream for a bunch of kids. And I'm like, this is really random. And then she uses the Steve Buscemi credit card, and I'm like, wait, surely she should know by now not to use that card. But to be fair,
that should already be canceled, but whatever.
But to be fair, this is all part of her plan because she needs to be on the inside as well because she knows she'll be taken there and she can let Ewan McGregor in past the door. The stupid part of this, though, is that when they take her in, they don't search her for a gun that she has down the front of her pants. She literally sits up in the operating room when they're getting ready to harvest their organs and just pulls out a gun and says, "You won't be touching me." And that's it. I'm like, they missed this gun? Where did she have it? Was it up her vagina? Where was it?
Yeah, absolutely. This is kind of a bigger thing for me of how much not... I wouldn't even say not fleshing out, but specifically leaning into this aspect that the Institute has control over everything that these people do. Now, from their eating habits to who they can make contact with, their schedules, like they are locked down entirely. And yet, for some reason, they are unable to track when Ewan McGregor like goes into the back rooms, essentially, goes into the boiler room. They have no way of knowing who was back there, who did that, unless they just happen to see it on a surveillance camera later on. They had no ability to see that he captured a bug and brought it into his room. Like, there's so many things that feel like 1984 levels of control and absolute, like, there's no way you could get around this without being super sneaky and planning. And then there's other things that just feel like they stumbled dumb luck into the fact that they managed to be able to get to this point to begin with. I think once we hit this end bit here, it's the biggest part of that, where it feels like this Institute has zero control over anything that any of the people actually do unless they volunteer to participate in this system.
Yeah, no, I was thinking this as well, actually, when he was sneaking around and going to see Steve Buscemi. I was like, wait, they're tracking, like, you know, they're testing his blood or his piss every day. They're doing this, they're doing that. And they don't have just, like, simple trackers in them. Right. It feels like that would be like one of the first things they would do, that this evil company would do, to just make sure they always know where all the clones are.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't, so he's able to go and do all the sneaking around. And it's like, okay, this is a bit of a contrivance, but like it needs to happen for the plot to get going. But, you know, then it keeps doing things like that. And like you say, here at the end with her bringing this gun in, because keep in mind, this is like, I mean, do you think the implication is that Hounsou's character already face-turned and he let her keep the gun? Is that what they're trying to say? Because it feels like he makes that face turn. Because afterwards, when he runs into ScarJo, ScarJo doesn't know that he's about to help her, right? She's surprised when he helps her. So I don't think that holds water, but it's the only possible explanation for why it's not stupid that she still has that gun.
Yeah, no, I because they do this thing where it seems like they're about to fight, and then we cut away from the fight, so we don't know what happens. I don't think there's any way that he would have given her the gun after the fact, and even then, you still pat her down. You still figure out if there's a gun on her. Like, that's still in just bad security guard protocol.
Yeah, that's the phrase we'll go with. But you really struggled to get to it, so yeah, but that'll do.
Yeah. I wanted to use a lot more cursing, but I can't.
Yeah. I'm not even sure what the right phrase is, but anyway,
bad safety protocol. That's probably what it is.
Yeah, honestly, most of what happens at the end here, you know, she obviously helps save all the people getting into the chamber, right, and saves their lives, and that's that. Ewan McGregor is confronted by Sean Bean, who's got a laser sight on what turns out to be like a grapple gun, because it's not firing bullets, it's firing like a little arrow that's got like a tether on it.
They used this on Michael Clarke Duncan at the beginning.
That's right.
Yeah, it hasn't made an appearance since.
Because obviously they don't want to kill the clones if they're supposed to be useful. So he comes after him, and there's a bit of a fight. Honestly, it's not very interesting. The whole thing that Ewan McGregor was trying to do was break the giant hologram that's like disguising this place from the world. And I'll be honest,
the reverse of that, actually.
Well, no, I think it's both in a weird way, because I didn't get earlier on in the movie that the clones even saw anything like outside the place. Oh, yeah. It never even came up. It wasn't until the end where they're all looking out the window when the hologram disappears, where I'm like, oh, they had windows? I didn't think they had that. I thought the hologram was just to disguise this place from the outside world, because this whole thing of having clones is illegal, so they're making it look, you know, different.
They explicitly show that this is all in some sort of an underground bunker.
Yes.
Like, this was a repurposed thing. So I don't think that they needed to hide it from the world pretty much at all, because it's all just covered up by dirt and sand. I do think that it's actually kind of stupid that they have this hologram thing set up. Like, if you tell people that, hey, the entire world is contaminated, it's all messed up out there, you will absolutely die if you go outside, does it really matter if you're above ground or below ground? Does it really matter if they show that there's this scenic thing on the outside? I feel like if I were to see that, oh no, there wasn't actually a scenic thing, it's actually just walls outside, but there's still a virus up there, so I'm not going to risk it.
Yeah, but that begs the question, though. Like, when the hologram turns off, why are they seeing anything other than just dirt or concrete?
Just cement walls.
Yeah, I don't know. That's weird, actually. It's like, it doesn't necessarily prove anything, but they all go running for the hills because they think, oh, we've all been told a big fat lie.
I like to imagine, because they explicitly say that the ability to question your surroundings and all that are echoing afterwards. It's that fifth rung. I like to think that the Alpha, Beta, Gamma, and Delta groups just stay in there. They're just like, oh, no, this is great. I'm having fun. I don't need to leave.
Yeah, because we did gloss. There's a couple of characters of the other clones that we do kind of get to meet. There's like one guy who is starting to question things and get kind of angry because he's been here for 7 years. And he ends up getting killed by Sean Bean for asking too many questions. There's also the main guy that's going into the chambers, this sort of hopeful guy who's been like kind of, you know, he's like kind of like a sympathetic sad guy who is like determined to win the lottery. But he seems very kind of like gentle and kind of, I don't know.
He's got like a conspiracy theorist angle to him.
A little bit, yeah. Yeah, but it feels like he's just trying to come up with conspiracies that make it sound like he's going to get picked soon because he's trying to make himself feel better. It all feels a little bit on the kind of sympathetic, pathetic side. That was a weird phrase, but you know what I mean.
No, you're right, yeah.
So there's a couple of clones, which makes sense. We should care about at least a couple of the ones that are still on the inside, otherwise the entire third act would never work. I don't think it does work anyway, but it would never work if we didn't care about any of the clones.
So I think that's kind of what I was hinting at with the beginning, is that this entire movie, they are on the back foot. Nothing is working out from them. Everything has gone wrong. Finally, he manages to fake his way through a single interaction of saying, I'm actually the real one. And then everything from that point on feels like they are in control of the situation top to bottom. Yes, there's some stuff that gets a little bit out of hand, but like that's mostly Ewan McGregor against Sean Bean. If you look at Scarlett Johansson's plot, nothing goes wrong for her the entire time. There is no fight that she has to win or anything like that. So by the time we get to the end, it just feels kind of unearned. Like, oh, they were always able to do this and nothing was ever going to be able to stop them to begin with.
Yeah, Ewan McGregor fires the taser, like wire gun back at Sean Bean, and Sean Bean ends up getting strangled with it when they both end up dangling off the walkway. So he just dies. And the movie just ends with all the clones in their white outfits just walking out into the desert, looking at the sun. There's choirs in the soundtrack, making it all sound like some biblical's happening. And the movie ends with a shot of ScarJo and Ewan McGregor on a boat going to some island. They found an island. In fact, that reminds me of my least favourite line of dialogue in the whole movie. As they're starting to have sex, or maybe just after they've had sex, whatever the context is, she leans in and goes, "The island's real. We found the island. We're the island."
Such a bad line. I get the implications of it. I get the thing of like paradise is a place on earth sort of thing, but like, oh God, it's so poorly done.
Ooh, baby, you know it's not fun. Ooh, heaven is a place on earth. I'm sorry, you said paradise is a place on earth, and that song just came out in my head.
It's okay.
Yeah, Hounsou's character smiles at them like, yeah, we did something good today. And I'm like, yeah, how many people did you kill? Try to hunt them down?
All right. He smiles. He's like, I committed numerous Geneva Convention violations. Like, I am going to a prison forever.
Oh, dear. Yeah, the movie is not good. It's a big, soulless blockbuster that has the depth that you think a Michael Bay movie that's tackling a lot of these subjects. It's basically remaking Clonus, or Clonus the something horror? No, something the Clonus horror. What's it called?
Yeah, it's something Clonus. Clonus is in there. Hold on.
What's that movie that Mystery Science Theater did? The director sued them over. We mentioned it earlier, but I didn't tell you the name of the movie, and I never forgot.
It's called Parts: the Clonus horror.
Right. Okay. There you go. That's the movie that the director sued them for. Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, but yeah, you can see the Logan's Run stuff in here. The idea we're in a society and it's cut off from the world. There's a bit of 1984 in there. We can argue maybe a little bit of Truman Show if you want. Like, there's all these things that it's just, and it's not even like all these other things I'm bringing up are necessarily all amazing. Some of them are. Some of them are okay. Some of them are just decent and so on. But they're all better than The Island. Well, except maybe the Clonus horror. Maybe not that one.
No, I'm going to say it is. I'm going to say it is until proven otherwise.
Well, we'll find out on X Reels at some point. It's definitely in that caliber, right. So we can do that. But yeah, it's just a big soulless Hollywood blockbuster. It's not like the worst thing ever. It's an easy enough watch. It's just kind of dull, and I imagine that at the time when it came out, it would have been slightly better than it is now, because now you really feel all the tropes of the time and how it's made and how it looks, and in combination with the fact that it's not particularly aged well. And obviously, yeah, you're looking at some of these actors and you're like, yeah, ScarJo's had a great career, but this is not one of her highlights by any stretch of the imagination. So yeah, The Island is no good. And it's 2005. The only island I care about is the one that the Dharma Initiative was experimenting on, quite frankly.
Yeah. That's fair. I don't know. I went into this very low expectations, and I still feel like they weren't met. A lot of what you're saying of the tropes of the time, I think those are kind of my biggest issues with it. I don't think that this movie was doing anything uberly creative or uberly new when it first came out, but I definitely think that these tropes are what's aging it worse for me than even having pulled from all of these other different ideas and just kind of put them in a blender. Like, I could easily see something that explores this kind of idea and actually takes the sci-fi element of it more than the action element, and I would be much more interested. I would have a lot better of a time.
Yeah, because I think the tropes, you'd probably live with a lot of them if like the sci-fi writing was better, but because the script is pretty poor, because the sci-fi stuff is not explored enough, and then you've got all the other things like the bad editing and like the action direction. You know, the irony that Michael Bay is known for action movies, but I think most of his actions edited horribly because he loves quick cuts, he loves shaky cam, he loves too many lens flares, he loves just so much to try and
blowing
mask
up a highway.
Yeah, the highway stuff. It's so much to mask the lack of any real like sense of geography or skill in the action scenes to me. He just gets the money to put big effects in there and do big things, and I'm like, they'd actually be more impressive if you let the shot of the car flipping or the explosion like last more than 2 seconds, but yeah, you know, it is what it is. So yeah, I can't say I feel bad that I didn't watch this till now. I think I made all the right choice. Every time I considered maybe watching this in the past 20 years and said no, I think I made the right choice, but I guess it's ticked off the list.
You did it. Congratulations.
Actually, just before we get to the final rating, Joe, something else that the movie introduced at the start that never really was a factor or played into their characters at all is they did a thing where ScarJo like got extra bacon from the lunch lady because she was nice to her and like acted interested in her like life and like just said a couple of nice things to her, and it was setting up that Ewan McGregor can't do that. He doesn't know how to sweet talk her, but ScarJo does. And I thought, oh, this is a character trait. She's good with people. She's going to be able to influence people or maybe make them sympathize with her. And it never ever comes up in the entire movie. She never once like does it to anyone else.
That was a deleted scene where Scarlett Johansson and Lawrence actually did get into a fight, but she stops the fight and says, "Hey, where were you? We missed you. We wanted to see you again." And that's why he joined her side.
Oh, that's who Lawrence is. I thought you just said Lawrence instead of Lincoln. I was like, who's Lawrence? No, it's Lincoln. You're thinking of Lincoln. But oh, no, yeah.
No.
Hans' character.
The assassin guy.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, David, what are you rating The Island?
God. I honestly think I may have come into this review at like a 6, somewhere around there. But in talking about it, I've gotten lower. I've just gotten more fed up with it. I guess I'm just questioning, does it break the 5 mark? I think it's at the 5 mark for me. I think that's what I'm going to give it. It does have a few little things that at least are somewhat intriguing, but the frustration that comes with the fact that they don't really capitalize on all that kind of cancels it out. So all I'm left with is an interesting production value standpoint, but horrible, drawn out action scenes that don't feel like they slot to the movie at all. In fact, you know what? I just talked myself lower. 4.5. I'm going 4.5.
Yeah, I think in the first half of the movie, I was like, oh, this is such a 5. Like, I was starting at a 5. And then the way that it wrapped up, the third act being the just like how easy it was like to get back into this place, like how smoothly everything went, the way they didn't pay a lot of things off and just took the path of least resistance, and then the ultra happy ending. I'm like, yeah, this is a 4. Like, there's definitely worse and there's more like painful things to sit through, but it's not a good movie. I think it's a bad movie, and I think that's a 4 out of 10. So that's where I land. So we do have David's homework to get to, but just before we get to that, of course you can support us over in Patreon and get some bonus stuff. I don't think I said that at the start of this time. I think I forgot to say it. I forgot to do my usual intro bit. Oh no.
Well, let's just restart the review. We'll
just
do it
start.
again.
Yeah,
Fine.
that's 2 hours down the drain. We'll just start from scratch.
Yep.
Yeah, you can get bonus content on Patreon or via YouTube membership. Those are both ways you can support us and make sure that the Atomic Cinema Experiment keeps coming. Collector's Cut keeps coming, which is the other movie podcast we do, where we work through franchises and like we do seasons of movies. Like we got 70s thrillers coming up soon. We're doing Naked Gun. We're doing Superman. All these seasons. Fun stuff. In fact, one thing that's slightly changing soon is that after the start of August, there'll be no more weeks off for Ace or Collector's Cut. There'll be a weekly show with no breaks, unless something out of our control maybe stops us for a couple of weeks or something. But we're not going to be scheduling weeks off anymore like we had done. So hopefully that's a change that everyone's excited about, and it's more Ace episodes in the pipeline. So if you want to help keep all of it coming, you can do so via Patreon, YouTube membership. If you want to do a one-time thing, if you don't want to commit to like a monthly subscription, you can do that with a super thanks on YouTube. All of these options are greatly appreciated, and every little does help. So thank you for considering it. Thanks to everyone who does support us already. I probably don't say that as much as I should on the actual show. I do on the bonus content. I always thank them, obviously, but like I probably don't do it enough on the regular content. Thank you, patrons.
One of these episodes, you just got to print out all the names, read them off, and give a specific thank you to each and every one.
Nah. I mean, even that's for us is too long a list. It was sitting here.
I mean, mainly it's just because I'm still technically on that list, and I would like some appreciation, but whatever.
I'll get to your name, and we'll see what I say. Oh,
thank you. Oh, this guy, piss off.
Nice guy, nice girl, nice guy, nice girl. Oh, David, prick. Nice guy, nice girl, nice guy, nice girl. So on and so forth.
Yeah. It's weird you have an exact 50-50 ratio of guys and girls.
I mean, on Patreon, it's not... I mean, I think it probably is slightly more guys and girls, but the ratio on Patreon of supporters between male and female is much closer to even, especially given that the ratio on YouTube is like 9% female versus 91% male, but in Patreon it's like 60-40. So clearly,
dude, I run the comic channel analytics every once in a while. It's like 99% male.
Yeah.
Nobody of the fair sex is checking that out.
Yeah, so hey, it just means that there's a higher percentage of the women who like the shows choose to support us, and thank you, ladies. It's not Women's Month, but I'll thank you specifically anyway.
Thank you. I've always wanted a sugar mama.
Aye. Discord actually cut out half of what David said there. I'll hear it on his audio track when I'm editing. If I bother to check. All right, David, every week on the show, you go back and do a movie. You watch a movie that we did in the show before you joined, so you're catching up on all the sci-fi movies that you haven't seen before, or haven't given an opinion on at the very least. So what was this week's homework movie?
Just by virtue of me asking, you're probably going to have a good idea, but do you want to take a guess?
Well, it's let me think. So you either went with a Michael Bay movie, and that probably means Transformers.
Okay.
Which would be bold for you to do, to watch a second Michael Bay movie this week. Or did you do something with clones? I don't know if you've done any clone movies yet on the show. Maybe you're about to tell me one, but I don't think we have.
So then is Transformers your guess?
I guess it is. There's Transformers?
It's Transformers.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
I sick son of a bitch.
I watched Transformers before I watched The Island, and let me tell you, that does not inspire hope when you go into the latter movie. You're like, oh God, I'm going to have more of this. I really don't have anything more to say except for everything we just said on The Island.
Hey,
like, it's all pretty much a copy-paste over.
I'll say this. I think Transformers is better than The Island for whatever that's worth.
Yes, in aspects, but there are other aspects where, like, I feel like the island was pretty reserved with the comedy, but when it decided to take a strike, it worked for the most part. Transformers is the opposite, where it kept swinging and it kept missing. I was so fed up.
Did you not like the parents and all their shenanigans? Did you not like the fact that we can't walk in the lawn? Did you not like Sam Witwicky?
It was somewhere between the parents and like the fourth piss joke that I was like, all right, I'm done. Megatron, you can kill them all. I'm all right with that. I do think that the third act of this one, at the very least, had like a little bit more going for it because, like we were saying for the island, there was a lack of direction for them in any of the action scenes in that movie. For the third act in this one, it at least felt like there was a clear, you have to get from this point to that point, and here's where all the other characters are to help you out. So I will give them credit that at least that lesson was learned over the 1 year difference, but oh boy, everything else just kind of feels exactly the same. And I was really, also there's like 7 plot threads that all end up intertwining by the end, but like it makes the first half of that movie a slog to get through.
Yeah, at least 2 of them you could just immediately cut out. Like all the military stuff, cut it. All the hacker stuff, cut it. Like you could tighten the movie up so much and it'd be all the better for it.
Yep, absolutely. So collectively, I think I'm probably going to come down close to the same thing, but it's I will say is at least a little bit over the 5 mark, so I'll say 5.5.
All right, there you go. And that means you've got Revenge of the Fallen to look forward to in the near future.
I purposely tried to get Transformers out of the way early so I can put off Revenge of the Fallen as long as humanly possible.
Oh boy. Well, everyone, that is the show. That has been the Atomic Cinema Experiment. Thank you very much for joining us. We do appreciate it. Like, subscribe, all the usual things. Helps out a bunch if you do, as well as all the monetary support that you can also do, as my cat is up sniffing my hand. So that's the show, everyone. We'll see you next time. Keep watching science fiction and computer ad salsa.